Hello, in this lesson we are going to be exploring the different types of hunger. And so tuning into the type of hunger that you are experiencing can help to build self-trust around food. There are different types of hunger, and the first one that we all experience is physical hunger. This comes from our natural need for energy and food. Physical hunger starts to build gradually and is open to eating a variety of different options. Usually we do feel satisfied after we have eaten. This is because physical hunger stops once we are comfortably full. Eating doesn't make you feel bad about yourself, and so when you genuinely feel physically hungry, this is an indication that you should probably have something to eat. The other type of hunger that we experience is taste hunger. And so this is when you are craving something specific, and the focus would be on satisfying a sense-based aspect of food. So it could be sweet, salty, sour, bitter, umami, or savory. Taste hunger is what you experience with or without physical hunger. And so you are driven to eat because something sounds good, looks good, or smells delicious. And so there is nothing wrong with satisfying your cravings because that is just your taste hunger at play. And so the third type of hunger is called practical hunger. And this is where you would eat because you need to at that specific time. It isn't a true hunger, but rather a need to eat in anticipation of hunger. And so say you are attending an event and you had a choice to either eat before or after the event. This is when practical hunger would make logical sense to have something beforehand to prevent you from getting over hungry or ravenous or hangry. So basically, practical hunger allows flexibility depending on your schedule. And so when you're overly busy or unable to listen to your internal cues, it's more important to eat regularly as your body and mind need that fuel. And so when you are overly busy or unable to listen to your internal cues, it is more important to eat regularly as your mind and body need the fuel and really appreciate the consistency of your meal times. The next type of hunger is nutrient hunger or nutrient specific hunger. And so this comes from a specific need for nourishment. Usually this occurs after prolonged restriction. And so our bodies are quite smart. They know exactly what nutrients they need and when. So for example, say you were to go vegetarian, some people would experience that intense hunger for iron or meat. And so it does relate back to some form of deprivation. Another type of hunger is emotional hunger, and so emotional hunger is related to our feelings or unmet emotional needs. And so emotional hunger usually comes on really quickly and is usually coupled with an uncomfortable or intense emotion. They could be sadness, anxiety, loneliness, but also extreme joy. And so emotional hunger usually piques up an interest or makes us feel like a specific comfort food. And so how emotional hunger develops is maybe something would upset you. Then you would feel an overwhelming urge to eat maybe a specific type of food. Once you start eating that type of food, you may eat more than is comfortable for you. You may overeat. And then usually what happens after that is that you would feel guilty or powerless over that food. And so it can develop into this vicious cycle of emotional eating. The thing to keep in mind is that emotional eating is normal and natural. We all do it. The reason for that is because we all have this emotional connection to food. And usually it is in response to a significant situation or event. So if you think about celebrations, weddings, birthdays, they're all surrounding food. Same thing for when people are feeling down or sad or lonely. Some people turn to food as well. Often it is an automatic behavior, and so the more that food is used as a coping mechanism, the more that can develop into a habit. And so the interesting thing about emotional eating as well is it is linked to the release of certain brain chemicals. And so we may feel different emotions after we eat these specific foods that we're craving. And so 4 steps to manage emotional eating. We want to be able to take a breath, take a pause, and just slow the heart rate down a little bit. Then we want to ask ourselves, are you genuinely hungry? This answer then influences how we proceed from there. If you are genuinely hungry, then maybe you could try to eat mindfully. And that means to check in with your hunger cues and choose foods that you actually like and want to eat. Then you would proceed into mindful eating, where you would take your time, be present in the moment, and engage all your senses during that process. If you're not genuinely hungry, then I would consider thinking about how you're actually feeling, labeling any emotions that come up or any of the feelings that come up, and ask yourself if you're willing to use any self-soothing strategies or self-care strategies. And so if you know that you're genuinely not hungry and it's not coming from a place of physical hunger, that is when you have a choice to make, whether you distract, delay, or decide on some form of non-food related self-care activity. Some of the other examples of strategies that you can use when you are experiencing that trigger to eat emotionally would be to engage in some creative activities. So these can be things like arts and crafts, so painting, coloring, sketching, sewing, knitting, crocheting, anything that you really enjoy. Another strategy would be to comfort your senses, so engaging in some of those sensory tools. Social connection is another outlet that we can use, so reaching out to support people, family or friends. That could be a really helpful way to talk things out, share your experiences, and also feel validated. Mental engagement activities, so these could be things like brain stimulating activities, apps on your phones like Sudoku, crosswords, things like that. Other strategies would be to focus on something else or to distract. You could also participate in some enjoyable forms of movement. It could be low intensity things like yoga, stretching, walking. And then another strategy would be to participate in some calming or quieting activities, so that those grounding activities that we've talked about before. So meditation, deep breathing, those types of things can also help you manage that emotional eating trigger. And so I just wanted to end this lesson with this reminder that perfectionism is self-destructive. Simply because there is no such thing as perfect, perfection is an unattainable goal. So when it comes to hunger, we all experience all the different types of hunger. There is no reason that one is better than the other, or we should be only eating for physical hunger and not emotional hunger. They are all in that spectrum of hunger, and it's how we navigate through the hunger and know what to do in those situations that can help us to feel more calm, at ease around food, and also build that self-trust around food. Thank you so much for listening to this lesson. I have activities that you can start putting into practice from this module's guidebook. And remember to please like, subscribe, or share this video with others who may find it helpful.